My sister's betrayal cut so deep I can still feel the knife in my chest. Last night, I threw Lauren out of my house, her suitcase skidding across the icy Colorado porch as she screamed curses at me. My kids, Emma and Noah, sobbed upstairs, their cries like shards of glass in my heart. I'm 34, a single mom clawing to keep my family from falling apart, but Lauren spent 6 months poisoning my own children against me. This isn't just a family spat. It's a wound so raw I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone again. It started last September when Lauren showed up at my doorstep, a wreck. She'd lost her job as a graphic designer, her apartment, and her boyfriend of 3 years, all in one brutal month. "Sarah, I have nowhere else to go," she'd cried, her voice breaking as she clutched a worn duffel bag. Lauren's always been the chaotic one, charming, impulsive, the kind of person who could make you laugh while picking your pocket. Growing up, I was her safety net, covering for her when she snuck out or flunked tests. When Mom died 5 years ago, we promised to stick together. So, when she begged to stay, I didn't hesitate. I opened my door, thinking I was saving her. My house is small, a 3-bedroom ranch I scraped together after Tom left. It's just me, Emma 12, and Noah 9. Lauren took the pull-out couch, and at first it was like a gift. She brought life back into the house. After long shifts as a nurse, I'd come home to find her dancing with the kids to pop music, making them giggle in a way I hadn't heard since before the divorce. She helped with homework, cooked dinners, even taught Emma how to braid her own hair. "You're carrying too much, Sarah," she'd say, handing me a coffee after a 12-hour shift. "Let me help." I was so grateful I ignored the warning signs, the way she'd linger too long when tucking the kids in, the way their eyes lit up for her in a way they didn't for me anymore. But about a month in, things shifted. Emma started getting snappy, more than her usual preteen attitude. One night, she pushed her plate away at dinner, glaring at the chicken I'd made. "This is so boring," she said. Exhausted, I bit back my frustration. "It's what we've got, Em." She rolled her eyes. "Aunt Lauren says you're too tired to care what we eat." My stomach twisted. I looked at Lauren, who just shrugged, smirking. "Kids say the darndest things," she said, but her tone felt off. I brushed it aside, too tired to dig deeper. That was my first mistake. The sting of Emma's words lingered like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. "Aunt Lauren says you're too tired to care." I tried to tell myself it was just teenage angst, but the doubt crept in, gnawing at me during my night shifts at the hospital. Lauren's presence was starting to feel less like help and more like a shadow over my life. She was everywhere, packing lunches, driving Noah to soccer, whispering with Emma in her room late at night. I'd hear their giggles through the walls, and instead of feeling relieved, I felt like an intruder in my own home. A few weeks after the dinner incident, Noah came home from school with a new pair of sneakers, bright red, the kind he'd been begging for, the kind I couldn't afford. "Where'd you get those?" I asked, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. He beamed, kicking his feet up. "Aunt Lauren got them for me. She said I deserved something cool." I forced a smile, but inside, I was seething. I told Lauren we were on a budget, that I didn't want her buying the kids things without asking me. When I confronted her that night, she was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Lauren, I told you to stop with the gifts," I said, trying to keep my voice even. She barely looked up. "It's just shoes, Sarah. You're so uptight. Let the kid have some fun." I wanted to scream, but I swallowed it, afraid of waking the kids. "You're undermining me," I said. She rolled her eyes. "I'm just giving them what you can't." That was when I started noticing how Lauren's words were sinking into the kids. Emma began questioning every rule I set. "Aunt Lauren says bedtimes are for babies," she'd snap when I told her to turn off her phone at 9 p.m. Noah started whining about how I never took them to fun places like Lauren promised she would. I was working 60-hour weeks, my body aching from standing all day, my bank account barely covering the bills. And yet, Lauren was painting me as the bad guy, the mom who didn't care enough. I tried talking to her again, cornering her in the kitchen one morning. "You need to stop telling them I'm failing them," I said, my voice shaking. She leaned against the counter, sipping coffee, her expression cool. "I'm just being real with them, Sarah. They're not stupid. They see or never hear." Her words hit like a punch, but it was the smugness in her voice that made my blood boil. I walked away before I said something I'd regret, but the rift between us was growing, and I didn't know how to stop it. I started feeling like a stranger in my own house, like I was fighting a battle I didn't even understand. Lauren wasn't just helping with the kids anymore, she was rewriting my role in their lives. Emma stopped coming to me with her problems, like the time she cried about a fight with her best friend. Instead, I'd overhear her spilling everything to Lauren behind her bedroom door, their voices low and conspiratorial. Noah, my little boy who used to cling to me, now ran to Lauren when he fell off his bike, her arms open while I stood there, frozen, watching my son choose her over me. I was working myself to the bone, my nurse's scrub stained with sweat just to keep the lights on, but Lauren was the hero, the fun aunt who made everything better. One evening, I came home early, hoping to surprise the kids with pizza. I found them in the living room, Lauren holding court like a queen. She was telling them stories about her adventures in Denver, making her old life sound glamorous, while I was just the boring mom who worked too much. Emma looked up, her eyes cold. "Why don't you ever take us anywhere fun like Aunt Lauren did?" she asked. I set the pizza box down, my hands shaking. "I'm trying, Em. I work so we can have this house." Lauren chimed in, her voice sweet but sharp. "Kids just want memories, Sarah. Not excuses." I wanted to slap that smug look off her face, but I bit my tongue, not wanting to fight in front of the kids. Later, alone in my room, I cried into my pillow, feeling like I was losing them. I tried to set boundaries, telling Lauren she couldn't make promises about trips or buy more gifts without my okay. She'd nod, but the next day I'd find a new sketchbook for Emma or a toy for Noah, with Lauren's handwriting on a note, "Because you deserve it." I confronted her again, my voice low in the kitchen after the kids were asleep. "You're crossing lines, Lauren. You're not their parent." She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "Maybe they need someone who acts like one. You're barely here, Sarah. They're lonely." Her words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, because part of me feared she was right. But it wasn't just criticism. She was planting seeds, making the kids see me as the problem. I went to bed that night with a knot in my stomach, wondering how my sister, the one person I trusted, could turn my own kids against me. The air in my house felt thicker, like I was breathing through a fog of resentment. Lauren's influence was suffocating, and I was losing ground with my kids. Emma's defiance grew sharper. She'd slam her door when I asked her to do chores, muttering, "Aunt Lauren doesn't make us do stupid stuff like this." Noah started parroting her, whining about how Lauren let him watch extra TV. I was drowning in my own home, my authority slipping through my fingers like sand. Every night, I'd collapse into bed, my nurse's shifts leaving me hollow, only to lie awake wondering how I'd become the enemy. One Saturday, I found a note in Emma's backpack while doing laundry. It was from Lauren, scribbled in her loopy handwriting. "You're so talented, Em. Your mom doesn't get how special you are, but I do." My heart sank. It wasn't just gifts or fun stories anymore. Lauren was feeding Emma's ego, pitting her against me. I confronted Lauren that evening, holding up the note. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. She was painting her nails on the couch, unbothered. "Just encouraging her, Sarah. She needs it." I stepped closer, my hands clenched. "You're telling her I don't care about her. You're turning her against me." Lauren capped the polish, meeting my eyes with a cold stare. "If you were around more, she wouldn't need me to tell her she's worth something." I felt like I'd been slapped. I wanted to scream that I was killing myself to provide for them, but the words stuck in my throat. The next day, I overheard Lauren talking to Noah in the backyard. "Your mom's always so stressed," she said, her voice soft but deliberate. "I'd make sure you had fun every day if I were in charge." Noah giggled, oblivious to the venom in her words. I stood frozen at the kitchen window, watching my sister weave her spell. It wasn't just undermining, it was calculated. She was painting herself as their savior, and me as the villain. I tried talking to Emma that night, hoping to reconnect. "I know I'm busy, but I love you," I said, sitting on her bed. She stared at her phone, barely glancing up. "Aunt Lauren says you only say that because you feel guilty." My chest tightened. I left her room, tears burning my eyes, knowing Lauren wasn't just living here, she was stealing my family. I was unraveling, my grip on my family slipping with every passing day. Lauren's words were like poison, seeping into Emma and Noah's minds, turning every moment I spent with them into a battle. I'd catch Emma rolling her eyes when I asked her to help with dishes, muttering, "Aunt Lauren says you just want us to be your maids." Noah stopped hugging me goodnight, instead running to Lauren for bedtime stories. I was their mother, but I felt like a ghost, fading from their lives while Lauren took center stage. My shifts at the hospital grew harder, the weight of exhaustion and betrayal making every step feel like wading through mud. One night, after a grueling 14-hour shift, I came home to find Lauren and the kids eating takeout from an expensive burger place I could never afford. The smell of fries filled the house, and Noah grinned, his face smeared with ketchup. "Aunt Lauren got us the good stuff," he said. I forced a smile, but my stomach churned. I told her no more lavish treats. She was ignoring me on purpose. Later, I pulled her aside in the hallway. "You can't keep doing this, Lauren," I said, my voice low but shaking. "You're making me look like I can't provide for them." She smirked, leaning against the wall. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with work, you could." I wanted to grab her, shake her, make her see what she was doing, but I just stood there, fists clenched, as she walked away. The next morning, I found Emma's journal on the kitchen table, left open like a trap. Her messy handwriting filled the page. Aunt Lauren says Mom doesn't know how to have fun. I wish we could live with her instead. My breath caught, my vision blurring with tears. This wasn't just defiance, it was a knife to my heart. I flipped through the journal, finding more entries about Lauren's promises of a better life, how she'd take them to amusement parks, buy them new clothes. I felt sick, realizing how deep her manipulation ran. When I confronted Lauren, holding the journal, she didn't even blink. She's just a kid, Sarah. She's venting. Her calmness infuriated me. You're filling her head with lies, I shouted. She stepped closer, her voice low. I'm giving her hope. Something you don't. I was too stunned to respond, the weight of her words crushing me. Lauren wasn't just undermining me, she was trying to replace me. I was hanging on by a thread, my heart bruised from Lauren's relentless campaign to steal my kids' loyalty. Every day brought a new jab, Emma's cold stares, Noah's questions about why I wasn't fun like Aunt Lauren. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I was failing them. My shifts at the hospital were relentless, patients coding, doctors barking orders, but the real pain was coming home to a house where I felt like an outsider. Lauren wasn't just overstepping, she was building a wall between me and my children, brick by brick. One Friday, I got a call from Noah's school during my lunch break. His teacher said he'd been acting out, pushing a kid on the playground. I tried calling you earlier, but your sister handled it, she said. My stomach dropped. I checked my phone, no missed calls. When I got home, Noah was playing video games, Lauren sitting beside him. Why didn't you tell me about Noah's fight? I asked, my voice tight. Lauren shrugged, not looking up. I took care of it. You were busy. I knelt in front of Noah. What happened, buddy? He glanced at Lauren before answering. Aunt Lauren said you wouldn't care because you're always at work. My blood ran cold. I sent Noah to his room and turned to Lauren. You told his teacher you were me? I asked, my voice shaking. She smirked. They needed someone to step up, Sarah. That night I couldn't sleep, replaying her words, her smugness. I started checking Emma's phone when she was in the shower, something I'd never done before. There were texts from Lauren sent during the day. Your mom's too stressed to listen, but I'm here for you. Another read, we'll have so much fun when I get my own place. My hands shook as I read them, realizing Lauren wasn't just talking behind my back. She was actively plotting to pull my kids away. I confronted her the next morning, phone in hand. You're texting my daughter, telling her I don't care? Lauren leaned back in her chair, unfazed. She needs someone to talk to, Sarah. You're not exactly winning Mom of the Year. I slammed the phone down, tears burning my eyes. Get out, I whispered. She laughed, sharp and cruel. You need me here. You can't do this alone. I walked away, my chest heaving, knowing I was close to breaking but too scared to pull the trigger. She was my sister, but she was tearing my family apart. I was living in a pressure cooker, every day tightening the lid on my sanity. Lauren's manipulation was no longer subtle. She was openly challenging my role as a mother, and my kids were slipping further away. Emma barely spoke to me, her answers reduced to grunts or sharp retorts. Noah, once my little shadow, now looked to Lauren for everything, comfort, advice, even permission to stay up late. I'd come home from the hospital, my body aching, only to find Lauren playing the perfect parent, while I was the tired, absent mom who couldn't measure up. I started doubting myself, wondering if I was the problem, if my kids would be better off without me. One evening, I overheard Lauren on the phone in the living room, her voice low but clear. Yeah, Sarah's barely holding it together. The kids deserve better. My heart stopped. She was talking to someone, maybe her ex, maybe a friend, spreading lies about me. I stormed in, my hands shaking. Who were you talking to? I demanded. She hung up quickly, her face blank. Just a friend, Sarah. Calm down. But I couldn't calm down. You're telling people I'm a bad mom? I said, my voice rising. She stood, crossing her arms. I'm not wrong. Look at you, always stressed, never here. The kids need stability. I felt like the floor was collapsing beneath me. You're the one destabilizing them, I shouted. You're filling their heads with lies. The argument woke Emma, who ran downstairs, tears in her eyes. Why are you yelling at Aunt Lauren? She screamed. She's the only one who cares about us. My heart shattered. I turned to Lauren, expecting her to correct Emma, but she just stood there, a faint smirk on her lips. See, she said softly. They know who's really here for them. I lost it. You're poisoning my kids, I yelled, stepping toward her. Emma grabbed my arm, sobbing. Stop it, Mom. You're making everything worse. I froze, the weight of my daughter's words crushing me. I sent Emma back to bed, my voice barely steady, and turned to Lauren. "This ends now," I said, my voice low. "You're out of here tomorrow." She laughed, cold and sharp. "You won't do it. You need me." I walked away, my chest burning, knowing I had to act but terrified of what it would cost. Lauren wasn't just my sister anymore. She was a threat, and I was running out of time to stop her. I couldn't breathe in my own house anymore, the air thick with Lauren's betrayal. Her words, her smugness, her calculated moves to steal my kids' love, they were choking me. Emma's outburst, siding with Lauren, replayed in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, my heart racing, knowing I had to do something before I lost my children completely. I was their mother, not Lauren, and I wasn't going to let her take that from me. The next day, I called in sick to work, something I hadn't done in years. I needed to be home to face this head-on. I found Lauren in the kitchen, making pancakes for the kids like she was the perfect mom. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. She flipped a pancake, not looking up. "What now, Sarah?" I took a deep breath. "You're leaving. Today." Her spatula froze and she turned, her eyes narrowing. "You're serious?" I nodded, my hands clenched. "You've been turning my kids against me, pretending to be their mom. I'm done." Her face twisted into a sneer. "You're pathetic. You think you can handle them alone? They love me more than you." Her words hit like a freight train, but I stood my ground. "Pack your stuff and get out," I said, my voice cold. Lauren laughed, but it was shaky, like she hadn't expected me to follow through. She stormed to the living room, grabbing her things, muttering about how I'd regret this. Kids came downstairs, confused, as Lauren started packing her duffel bag. "What's happening?" Noah asked, his voice small. Emma glared at me. "Why are you making Aunt Lauren leave?" I knelt in front of them, my heart breaking. "She's been lying to you, saying I don't care. I love you both more than anything." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Lauren paused at the door, her voice dripping with venom. "You're making a mistake, Sarah. They'll hate you for this." I didn't look at her. "Go," I said. The door slammed and she was gone, her car screeching out of the driveway. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma ran to her room, sobbing. Noah clung to me, crying, "Why did Aunt Lauren leave?" I held him, tears streaming down my face, knowing I protected them but shattered their world. I kicked my sister out, but the fight for my kids was far from over. The house felt like a war zone after Lauren left, the silence heavy with anger and grief. Emma locked herself in her room, refusing to speak to me, her door a barrier I couldn't breach. Noah clung to me 1 minute, then pushed me away the next, his little face crumpled with confusion. "Why did you make Aunt Lauren go?" he'd ask, his voice breaking. I tried to explain, but how do you tell a 9-year-old that their aunt was manipulating them? I was their mom, but I felt like I'd lost them, and the guilt was crushing me. I'd kicked Lauren out to protect them, but it felt like I'd only driven them further away. I found more of Lauren's damage in the days that followed. Cleaning the living room, I discovered a stack of notes tucked under the couch. Letters from Lauren to Emma, promising a better life when she got her own place. "Your mom doesn't understand you like I do," one read. My hand shook as I read them, tears blurring the words. Lauren hadn't just been undermining me, she'd been planting dreams of a life without me. I sat on the floor, clutching those notes, feeling like my sister had ripped my family apart and left me to pick up the pieces. I tried talking to Emma, showing her the letters. "She was lying to you, Em," I said, my voice soft, desperate. She snatched them from me, her eyes flashing. "You're just jealous because she loves us," she shouted, storming out. Noah overheard and started crying, asking if Lauren was coming back. I held him, my heart breaking, but I didn't have answers. That night, I checked Emma's phone and found new texts from Lauren, sent from a burner number. "I'll always be here for you, Em. Your mom can't take that away." My blood boiled. I blocked the number, but the damage was done. Lauren was still reaching for my kids, even from afar. I started cutting back my shifts, desperate to be home more, to show Emma and Noah I was here for them. But every step felt like wading through quicksand. Emma's anger was a wall, Noah's confusion a weight I couldn't lift. I'd saved them from Lauren's manipulation, but at what cost? My kids looked at me like I was the villain, and I didn't know how to prove I was fighting for them, not against them. All I knew was that I couldn't give up, even if it meant facing their pain head-on. Weeks after Lauren's departure, my house was a battlefield of silence and resentment. Emma's anger hung like a fog, her door always shut, her words sharp when she bothered to speak. Noah's confusion broke my heart daily. He'd ask for Lauren, then cry when I had no answers. I was fighting to reclaim my kids, but every step felt like climbing a mountain with no peak. I'd cut my shifts at the hospital, trading sleep for time with them, but their trust in me was fractured, and I was terrified I'd never mend it. Lauren's shadow lingered, her lies still echoing in their minds. Then came the call that shook me to my core. It was Lauren's ex, Mark, his voice tense. "Sarah, I heard from a friend. Lauren's telling people you're unfit, that she's planning to file for custody of Emma and Noah." My blood froze. Custody? She had no job, no home, but the audacity of it, the betrayal, sent me spiraling. I tore through Lauren's old room, desperate for evidence of her scheming. Under the couch, I found a hidden journal, not Emma's but Lauren's. Page after page detailed her plan. "The kids love me more. Sarah's too weak. I'll take them when I'm back on my feet." My hands shook as I read her words, a mix of rage and fear choking me. My sister wasn't just manipulating, she'd been plotting to steal my children. I sat Emma and Noah down that night, the journal in my lap. "I need you to hear this," I said, my voice trembling. I read them Lauren's words, watching Emma's face pale, Noah's eyes widen. "She was lying to you," I said, tears falling. "I've been fighting for you every day, even when I'm not here." Emma's lip quivered, and for the first time in months, she didn't argue. "Is it true?" she whispered. I nodded. "I love you both more than anything." Noah crawled into my lap, sobbing. Emma hesitated, then joined us, her arms around me, her tears soaking my shirt. We sat there, holding each other, the weight of Lauren's betrayal lifting just enough to let us breathe. Lauren's threats faded. She had no case, no ground to stand on, but the scars remain. Emma's still wary, Noah still asks about her sometimes, but we're rebuilding, piece by piece. I tuck them in every night, my heart full despite the pain. I kicked my sister out to save my family, and though it nearly broke us, it's a fight I'd wage again. They're my kids, and no one, not even Lauren, will ever take that away.